So, again, a little live on regarding this idea of eat the rich. Again, all these distractions. It's very interesting. All these distractions. What is the point of it all? So while I wait for people to come on, I am going to chant Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Oh, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. So we're going to be talking about this idea, welcome, of eat the rich. To fall into the anger of the collective as we go through these amazing signs in the sky, using code words like Dior bags, and all kinds of code words that really should be a massive fright to all of you, that we are being muzzled to levels that, I don't know, we haven't seen in like maybe 250 years. Certainly my father fought on the world stage in World War II to make sure that we could all talk however the fuck we wanted to. But now it seems that every social media platform is going to have an agenda to muzzle us. So now we need to be looking at different ways, creating different ways to communicate. Hence why they arrested the guy who founded Telegram, even though there was no censoring of anything, which means there was the dark underbelly, the evilness. People keep talking about how money is the root of all evil. And again, I'm going to repeat a lot of things that many of you have already heard, but I think it's worth repeating because some of you may be new to this. Money is not the root of all evil. Evil people are the root of all evil. Money is like tofu. Whatever the hell you put on it is what it becomes. There is nothing wrong with money, just like there's nothing wrong with this idea that you can have it all, because some people actually have it all. And I don't mean that they're rich. I mean, they have love, they have wealth, they have health, they have amazing connections with people, and they have peace. So they have it all. And their idea of having it all is quite often could be simple, like a goat farm, or living on an island and fishing. Or one of the incredible couples that I still remember was they had a 75-foot boat, sailboat, that they travel all over the world, and they would stop for food, for odd jobs, and then get back on that boat with their supplies. And they traveled, and they had a very free existence. I'm a pilgrim of hope. That's beautiful. The problem is with the power. Vol says, exactly. Well, the thing is, volume, is that the problem is definitely who has the power. And that's why we are seeing the orbs in the sky. We're seeing signs in the sky. I'm not going to say the word orbs because apparently even that can get you fucking removed. Many of us who are talking about many things, and we've been talking outside, coloring outside the lines for over a year, many of us, ever since the debacle in the Middle East, have been shadow banned, attacked. Our videos are being demonetized for no reason. I had a video that was actually flagged as being nude, and there was a picture of a Carl Jung quote. Swear to God, and it was flagged for NUDE. Can you imagine? So this company that took control, I'm going to say company slash government slash the little monsters on these hills that think they can control us indefinitely. Because, the beautiful thing about impermanence is all things are impermanent. That means all things end. All things. It took 500 years for Rome to implode. But then again, they didn't have social media. So maybe it would have taken 250 years. Had they had social media, it probably would have gone quicker. But ultimately, this concept of eat the rich and all that shit, you got to be careful with that energy. You got to be careful with going down that rabbit hole of rage, because it's impotent rage. And impotent rage will just have you screw up and make the wrong moves. And you'll get so emotional that you'll actually have the wrong intentions. And those intentions are not going to get you where you want to go. They're going to give you a lot more grief than any solution you'll ever. You won't get the solutions you're looking for. And I'm not saying that because I don't have a Sarah Connor in me. Trust me. I've had to calm down my little Sarah Connor archetype within myself, because I'm more than, I've been there, done that. But I also have sat in meditations going, having downloads, realizing it didn't work. It didn't work. It did not work. None of it worked, because we're still having the same conversation 200, 300 years later. The same trust me. We're not inventing anything new. The rage of the 99% has been felt again and again and again. So, but here we are. So, no, this is not the way. The way is energy work. And I think that's what's happening with the signs in the sky. And I'm not talking about the Dior bag, since we have to use that fucking term to make all, to calm down the 1%. But those things in the sky that are machine, which Trump rolled his eyes and said, I don't know if you saw that, he said, rolling his eyes, they know which garage they came out of, and they know which garage they'll return to. Well, that was it. He basically said it without saying it. He also spoke in fucking code. But anyway, but the other signs in the sky, let's call them plasmic, whatever. We'll call them plasmic, that have a consciousness. They can't actually come in and arm wrestle the whole lot of the 1%. Why? Because each and every one of us has a soul contract to do it ourselves. Most of us have massive trauma from the past revolutions, I'll say it once and not again, that happened in France, Russia, and other countries, okay? And because many of us have incarnated here to revisit a similar situation, with the hopes that we're going to create a new outcome, meaning a new solution that will literally catapult this planet out of 3D into 5D, right? Is exactly why they won't get involved. And it's funny, my guides are giving me this idea, this download of a good mother. What do good mothers do? Well, good mothers, they let their kids figure shit out. Why? Well, if there's a fight in the play yard, you're damn right they're all eagle-eyed, which is ironic because they're in the sky. But a good mother who's not going to raise a mama's girl or a mama's boy is going to sit back on the bench watching with eagle eyes to see how her kid can actually find the solution to an altercation on the play yard. That's what a good mother does, or a good father. And that's exactly what they're seeing. They're watching us. They're watching over us to make sure that we reach for the right solution. And the right solution is not punching someone out. It's not. The right solution is walking away and bringing our attention to a high vibration of transformation. That's actually the right solution. It's a solution we've never collectively ever used before, clearly, because here we are having this conversation. So that's the shift that they're holding sacred space for. Not those little SUVs in the sky, since I'll go with that, SUVs, but the actual consciousness of light that you're seeing. And people, you gotta have to really realize there are a lot, I'm gonna say it, assholes out here who are trying to get likes and attention and lying. I know they're lying because they're saying that the SUVs are turning into plasma, and that's bullshit. I know that there's a definite separation of two items that are floating in above our heads. One is a consciousness that's powerful, and the little SUVs want to know what the fuck they are and trying to control them, and that's not working. It's not working. And with that, many of you, if you're really serious about understanding what could be happening, then you need to buy the book by Serge Monast, Monast, a Canadian, on Project Bluebeam, because you should go get it. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of us who will try to read it, the whole thing, we will get shut down. We all know that. Or it won't remain long. Or we will be given a strike for like 7 days without access to a live. So it's really, it's going to get to a point where you're responsible for your own education as to what are the plans that have been discussed years ago I'm talking about the 90s. And, I think we've coming to a point where we know that these GOVs, governments, can lie. And they have lied for a long, long time. So pretty much if they told me the sky was blue at this point, I'd get a second opinion. I'm not joking. Because they are not here to care for us. A good society cares for its people. And what's interesting is that even though I really don't like to bring up, in this case, Gladiator 2, I find it interesting that Gladiator 2 has come out because by the way, I didn't watch it because I refused to, but in retrospect, because the first one was so fucking brilliant, why would I want to watch the second one? But in retrospect, what's the storyline? The storyline goes like this. Maximus tried to do the right thing, and somehow Lucius isn't now literally 24 years later, let's just say it, because it was made in 2000, it came out in 2000. So 24 years later, here we are having the same dialogue. And everyone's saying that about the movie, but they're not connecting the dots that's the same thing about societies that try to overcome an evil force that wants to subjugate the masses. So here's Lucius entertaining bread and the circus once again. I find it's actually quite interesting. I just actually thought of it just now. And I'm like, that's exactly what we've been going through for hundreds of years. We're trying to find our freedom and fighting it fighting fire with fire. And it's an interesting thing that it's a saying, fighting fire with fire. Well, no, you don't want to fight fire with fire. You want to fight fire with energy. In fact, you don't even want to fight it. You want to drop the ball. You don't want to engage at all, because the minute you stop engaging, it loses power. Eventually, fire dies out. It can be devastating. Don't get me wrong. I've been in the forest fires and the wildfires in California, so it's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. But they die out. Energy never does. Energy never does. And so when energy of anger and despair and hopelessness is activated in the 99% through egregores, through fear tactics, through making sure you are working paycheck to paycheck, and it goes from generation to generation, and less and less and less is given to each generation. And that kind of consciousness is created like in a lab, really, by design, to keep everyone in a slave mentality, then yeah, it works. And it perpetuates itself. And it becomes a hamster wheel, an emotional hamster wheel that traps you within that cycle and never ends. This is why it's so important for you to really get serious about your monkey mind, about how people manifest and what they manifest. how people have manifested the healing of inoperable cancers and things of that nature through through controlling the monkey mind, chattering that it's always been this way, that money is the root of all evil, that you can't have it all, that it's always been like that. It will never change. It's going to be very important to master all that, because the only way out of this isn't fighting fire with fire. I just reposted Dan Pena, who's a very, how do I put it without being a complete rude? Dan Pena, you should look him up if you don't know who that is. Dan Pena was interviewed by London. I'm trying to remember the thing, the show. It's called London something, London whatever, and it's an American guy who always dresses up with a suit and tie and this and that, and he's been groomed by Dan Pena. But anyway, the people you thought were good, many of them have been groomed by Dan Pena, and Dan Pena's whole philosophy is he's the old guard of greed is good. He comes from that, and you'll see him by a Christmas tree saying and insulting poverty, insulting people who don't have 300 presents under a Christmas tree. The irony of his disturbing insults to the 99% is kind of almost like pissing on Yeshua, to be honest with you, because we kind of all know what Christmas is all about. And having 300 presents from Mother Mary and Joseph trying to find a place to give birth. The guy has lost, but you see, this is what I mean. This is that the evil is so all-encompassing, they don't even sit to think and to use some kind of philosophical understanding of what things symbolize to people. And so honestly, having 300 presents under a tree, if that's supposed to be a mark of success, then I'm not interested. I'd rather have a son I have a relationship with, who is a good man, or to have relationships with really good people, and having amazing conversations that bring us to highest levels of consciousness into 5D understandings, and refining the ability to manifest a new earth, not 300 presents under a tree. And shaming, and then you hear the cackling of these other CEOs. By the way, that's an old video. That video, I remember seeing it about, what was it? Hang on. Yeah, it was around 2000. I just remembered it was around, not 2000, 2020. So right during COVID, as COVID was slamming into us. It would have been around, I remember seeing that video, I think it was around May. It's very possible it was way, way older because it was Christmas, but I remember that video. And it made me very uncomfortable. You'll be surprised how many people follow this piece of shit of a human being and respect him. But anyway, so the only way out is actually ignoring this concept of eat the rich, not buying into that bullshit, because it could be a psyop move to get you in the wrong frequency, because they have studied, and you know who I mean by they, the alphabet government has studied all kinds of shit about how we think. They've studied egregores. They know how they're built. They know how to build one within supposed free thinkers. They'll have people coming into their groups and infiltrate. Shit like that's been going on for a long time. So it's not like, and they have think tanks. Okay. So between all of that, when you see something that is manipulating you into grief, despair, or rage, you better walk the fuck away from that shit, because you're being played. That simple. You're being played. Don't play into that shit at all. Walk away and use your discernment and your incredible high frequency and your incredible power as a multidimensional light being, that if you actually didn't have the filtering system of the monkey mind, the brainwashing through this incarnations and past incarnations, you could actually levitate. You could actually Turn water into wine, and I'm not joking. And if you think that's funny, then I'm not for you. But I can tell you there are people out here that do it and can do it and have done it. They can touch you and heal you. Meaning if you have something wrong with you, the big C, they can literally, and when I say touch you, I mean just literally put their hand on you and boom, it's over. And I'm not talking about churches where people are yelling and screaming and falling on the floor and writhing. I'm talking about real healers that are quiet, that are underground, that are referred to people on a word of mouth basis. Because, the FDA would get involved. So anyway, with that said, there's so much for you guys to like work on, you know what I mean? And bring yourself up to par. So if I were you, I mean, I've been promising this book list, but I have to work on this altar class, which I have to do starting tomorrow. But once I can figure out how to set up a book list where you're not buying it from Amazon, once I can figure out how to set that up on thrift books or whatever, then I'll do it, because there are some amazing books that will change the way you think and change your life. There are books I can tell you that have changed my life, and so doing a 180, it's not a one-time deal. It goes on throughout your crossroad moments. It just massive changes. And then you look back going, how could I have thought so? How could I have been so limiting in my thinking? And yet you have to be kind to yourself and really gentle with yourself and realize the level of brainwashing when you realize it's staggering. Fucking, you were raised by people who were brainwashed, who actually, I don't know about your parents, but I know my parents died. My mother died at the last like week or so. When she woke up, her mind was blown. And what woke her up? I guess being on the doorstep of death will wake a lot of people up out of bullshit, like quick. You know what I'm saying? Start thinking in that bed. You don't want to watch the TV anymore. You don't want to watch the news anymore. You're thinking about your whole life, and you're starting to connect the dots, and it's blowing your mind. My dad was a conspiracy theorist way back, way back. He was one of these old timers, but she was drinking the Kool-Aid after he died. And her awakening was bittersweet. But you might have been raised by parents who really still believe in, a lot of bullshit, and it's going to be hard for you, but you've got to have as much compassion for them as possible. But meanwhile, your job, especially if you're a black sheep of the family, the scapegoat, the golden child, without or all of the above, because believe me, I've had clients where they were the golden child, the scapegoat, and the black sheep. It's a mess. But anyway, whatever the hell you are, you're there for a reason. So don't turn your back on people who love you, didn't harm you, didn't try to destroy you. Because there are some parents where, I can understand no contact, trust me. But there are some parents who are just, they're fucking innocent. Literally, they don't know any better. And they're terrified to have lived and worked that long to realize that it was all a joke. That would be devastating for someone who's like in their late 60s, early 70s. Massively devastating. It could literally destroy someone's whole reality. So with that said, you're going to have to be very patient with the elders. Some of the elders have been badasses and, outside the outskirts of society. They've been the lone wolves. They've suffered a lot for that. Terrence Howard, Terrence McKenna, for one, God bless him, he dropped his body before him. I can't imagine how hard that could have been. James Baldwin was another one. He had to go to France and write his books, and he couldn't handle it here. He couldn't handle being who he was in this country. It was too hard. And so many of them didn't make it to 65, swear to God, because I think many of them, they broke their heart. They couldn't understand why the obvious couldn't be seen by the 99%. So the good part, and I guess the glass is always half full, is that many, many, many of us are awakened. So whether or not TikTok survives or not is like, whatever. We need to move on. We need to keep going. This is why I came up with for me, it was important to have community. So me and Andromeda Flame have created 2 communities. One is called Starseeds Awakening, which you're welcome to join. You can hit me up. The other one is a private group for our classes that we only keep for our students, and that's it's something we keep separate. But Starseeds Awakening is an incredible group. It needs more life. It needs probably a lot more divine masculines. We have no divine masculines in our group at all. In that group, not because we're not trying, but because I don't know. I really don't know. I know that many of our females that are on that group are high priestesses, and they're really working their asses off to like heal themselves, to be enough into themselves. They're reading the books, doing the mantras, meditating, working on their chakras. Many of them are becoming healers in their own right. And, but for some reason, the divine masculines that are working on themselves, I'm not meeting them for whatever. I don't know. I know that we have one in our group, our class group, but we don't have any. And I think it's because divine masculines working on themselves are truly lone wolves. In fact, sometimes the pain is so intense that they do better alone. They can't handle the chatter of the neediness that, no offense to women, that we women need. The way we find our clarity and our healing is to talk to 2 or 3 girlfriends that we really trust and adore, and they adore us, and we hash it out until we come to some kind of understanding, resolution, and solution. And so I feel like but what I was telling my son, like yesterday, I was saying, when Iron John, the book Iron John by David Bly came out in the 90s, all these men were out camping and crying and talking and sharing, and there was a movement of men, like gay men, bisexual men, straight men. It didn't matter. They were all getting together, camping for the weekend, and really getting real. And suddenly it's crickets. It's like it never happened. If I didn't actually remember watching some short documentaries about it, I wouldn't know it existed either, but it did in the 90s. And now it's gone. It's like it never existed. And so I think that this lone wolf, that and this concept of pushing stoicism on men who are trying to heal themselves is actually toxic patriarchy. And stoicism, as I keep repeating myself, is good under wartime or massive challenges like natural disaster, shit like that, where you better be stoic because you can't panic, period. That's it. And that goes for women too. We need to be stoic. But under the time of peace, when a divine masculine is trying to find his healing, and he's trying to figure himself out and figure out his father and his mother and his siblings and everything that in some way has stained his view of the world, at some point it's good for you guys to form groups. And I'm sure there are groups out there, but I feel as if there's a silence, a massive secret, like these groups are keeping themselves under wraps. And it would be good if you could share to some pieces of it with the public, to give people ideas on how to form their own groups, most importantly, and then to give the feminine a sense of hope that there are men out there doing the work. Because right now I think a lot of women are feeling bereft, because it's like, I'm doing all the work and I'm not seeing the collective divine masculine doing the kind of work I'm doing on myself. And that would make people, especially women, feel hopeless, So, and I understand why men have to do it alone for a while, but at some point, even all wolves, lone wolves, eventually join the pack. And at some point, you're going to have to join the pack and share what you've learned about yourself, and be authentic and transparent in your vulnerability, and see your vulnerability as a second strength, not as a weakness. That's why we're here. Yeah, no, I understand you're here, but I think we need you to show more. Does that make sense? Show more. And only because I get women coming to me absolutely destroyed, because and there are a lot of men out there who are not divine masculines. I'll tell you why. Because they're broken and wounded and in denial, absolute denial, and they're not seeing the sacred divine masculine, saying, I've been an alcoholic, I've been addicted to shit, and this is the steps I'm taking to get out of it. There are men on TikTok who are doing that. Many of them are moving into Telegram. I've seen them move there for more private dialogue. And we just need men to sit and say, look, I've gone through this, I've gone through that, and this is what I'm doing. This is what I had to do. This is what it took me to get from point A, self-destruction, to point C, self-realization, and I'm doing X, Y, and Z to get it done. And I have a group. It's on WhatsApp or Telegram. Join me. Let's talk about it, and kind of promote this idea that this is normal, to normalize this idea of being massively vulnerable to each other, and literally about everything. Because I can tell you that we women, when we go into a circle, we talk about everything. Shit that most people would think they'd be embarrassed to talk about. The things you would imagine are the most embarrassing are the things we would sit and talk for 2 to 3 hours. Because that was the real shit that really was the shadows, the sticky shit that kept you from growing and healing. So I think it's important for people to start being much more vocal through blogging, vlogging, whatever, on that end. And mostly I'm seeing women. I do see men here and there. Like there's a really cool guy, but he's not talking about his journey. He's talking about a global, which I can understand. He's talking about, his name is Ari, Arri, on Instagram. And he talks about what it is to be a masculine. He's done some posts where he's not even talking about it. It's just he's posting it. And those of us who know he's a definite alpha male. But for people who have never known, they might think that it was put together by a chick because it's posts. You understand? It's not his voice talking about it. This is what I mean. These are subtle things that need to be done. We need to hear the masculine voice. We need to see, or the masculine image come through messages that are very supporting of the divine feminine and also supporting of the divine masculine's healing and what they're doing to heal. Because one of the books I remember giving my twin, and it's a book I've given, I tell people, if you're raising sons, if you've got brothers, fathers, lovers, you should read this book. And it's called Raising Cain, Protecting the Emotional Life of Boys. I haven't talked about this book for a long time, but that book, I remember underlining it. I had a 10-year-old son. I needed to understand, because I knew that the self-harming, since we can't use the appropriate word for the appropriate things, but anyway, self-harming, okay, is massive with boys. When a boy decides, when a masculine decides game over, it's fucking, I guarantee you it's game over. Okay, they'll do it once, maybe twice, but they'll do it to make sure it works. Whereas women, it's not that we don't mean it. It's like we're not as, adept. It could be, or we're crying out for help. Whereas when a man decides, it's based on impulsivity, despair, and and they know exactly. It's brutal. I won't go into it too much. So for me, it was important for me to understand what the signs, the silent signs of that kind of emotional implosion. Silent, unlike girls who cry. Boys don't, for the most part. And when they do, the message is clear from even mothers' attitudes about it. Mothers, other women, and I know this because I've seen it. Okay, some women are amazing. They don't give a shit if you're a boy, girl. They don't care if you're a grown-ass man. They will respect tears, and they'll welcome it, and they will give you sacred space. It doesn't matter the gender, but I've seen women and men who get fucking shitty about it. and have an attitude about it. Don't cry at work. Don't cry at the restaurant. Don't cry. I mean, it's like, who gives a shit what these people think? But people do care. They care more about what strangers think than you falling apart. It's kind of interesting. So a lot of things have been shamed, including rage, um, especially the masculine rage, because when the masculine rage explodes, it can be pretty scary for any feminine to witness. It can be very, very volatile. And that's also something that we've shamed. And I think that if men could actually learn how to express their feelings, it wouldn't be like a fuse that finally just blows. It would be normal anger, not explosive anger, which is a big fucking difference. There's nothing wrong with anger as long as it's not destructive. And sometimes when you allow anger to fester, frustration and anger, it explodes. And that is a problem. It needs to be. So the best solution is not to let it pen up. You've got to, you've got to diffuse it through journaling, through fucking talking, through whatever the hell it's going to take. And part of it also is somatic. You got to, like I remember me and my twin would go and like 4 or 5 days a week we'd go boxing. I'm sure he was getting rid of his anger, but so was I. So, but also for me as a female, which is normal for the feminine, is I have to articulate my feelings. And I had a friend, I've talked about her before, but it's been a while. It's been a year since I've talked about her. She was very much like a masculine. She'd keep everything to herself. She never talked shit, this, that, and the other. And she always kept her emotions in control. Wonderful woman, by the way. But she was definitely in her masculine energy. Why? Because she had to. In survival, she had to raise kids in absolute poverty. And she had to keep it together. She couldn't fall apart. So with that said, later on in life, she was hit with the big C. And then she ended up having 5 times. She had 5 heart attacks. I'm not joking. They finally had to do a massive surgery. The scar running from under her chin all the way down. You know what I'm saying? And I said to her, when was the last time you cried? She goes, I can't remember. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. And so you ask a man, when was the last time you cried? And, when my father died. Well, when was that? It's like, that's why a lot of men and a lot of women now are keeping up with the heart attacks. Now it's both genders, because now the feminine has had to become the man of the house because she's a single mother or a single householder, that, to make sense of it. So it's kind of intense. There's a lot of energies that have been building up for both the genders for a long time. And I feel as if at this point now we have to move into, kumbaya. We better move into the planet we want to co-create, because this is not going to, the feelings and the oppression and suppression of those feelings are not going to get better as long as the system, this corrupted system, continues as it has. It can't, and you don't have to worry. It won't. That's the whole point. It won't. But if people start using revolutionary terms and trying to incite this kind of solution, my friends, many we will be caught in the crushing wheels of that decision, and it will not be the 1% that loses. It will be the 99%. I'll guarantee it. So this is where you have to become a Zen master, Shaolin. You have to control. As a matter of fact, if you've ever studied martial arts, which I haven't really, but in theory, what I love about it in theory is that the last thing you want to do once you become a black belt or one of the great masters, right, is to ever pull the first punch. That's the whole point. The whole point is being a badass so bad, so intense, that the last thing you'll ever do is get violent. Last thing. Because you have absolute mastery of your emotions. And so that's where we need to be at this point. We have to become like Shaolin masters. We have to know we have the capability of doing what the French and the Russians and others have done throughout history. which let me point out again, failed at the end, because here we are still having the same fucking conversation. And we need to use the energy against them. Have you ever seen these guys that look like tiny, frail masters who use the energy of the guy that's 6'4" and 240 pounds, and literally the guy's like 5'5" and 120 pounds of that, and he uses the energy of the bully against them? That's what we have to do. We have to turn the egregore against them. And that's energy work, my friend. You're not going to do it with a baton in your hand. It's not going to work. Oh, it will work. You'll feel really good cracking heads, but after a while you'll realize, oh shit, it didn't do shit. And how do we know that? Because we can go down the hundreds of years of history, know your history, not to repeat it, and hopefully we won't repeat it. What happens to those of us who stand the line of this mastery of the self while the world implodes into this old pattern? There's going to be a split. Part of the split is that. It's a consciousness split. We choose energy, they choose violence. And there's going to be the bridge collapses. They will stay in 3D, we will be in 5D. And I keep mentioning the same thing because a long time ago, about 30 years ago, I remember hearing that the average brain, in other words, the average human being only hears 15% of anything that is said to them. So what that means to me, and it does, it's true, that people don't listen to remember, they listen to respond. And this is not a play where you're waiting for the line so that you can understand which, to trigger your line in a play. This is not a play, this is life. So you have to listen to remember, not to respond. And then, of course, you'll respond after you've heard it in your entire being. So when we use energy to move and shift away from the 3D debacle of the Den Peña and laughing under a Christmas tree and thinking they're such a success, you should see the man's face. You feel sorry for him. I remember seeing it when I first saw it, and it triggered me. But today, damn near almost, it's going to be 5 years later, I'm looking at it going, the man looks like a complete idiot. He looks angry. He looks lost. He hasn't been laid in dog years. You can tell. And if he has, he's paying for it. My point is, there's no success here. There's just fucking shit under his tree. Shit that people will throw in the trash in 10 years. Shit that will break. Meaningless shit. Not the real stuff. Being in your man or woman's arms and feeling like you're home. That's success. Looking at your child or your adult son and daughter, right? And they love you and they actually like you as a person. That's success. But the crap that these people have tried to pull on us for so long, we can't keep actually being triggered by it anymore. It's not going to bring us what we want. So I guess the question I have for you, maybe you can answer it, is what do you think you're going to do about this? Because you will be triggered moving forward. You're going to see a lot of injustice. Oh, thank you, my love. I love listening to you and to your podcast. There's a lot of chaos energy right now. Feels like I'm being told to stay quiet and let it be. Okay, beautiful. But I wouldn't say let it be. Not let it, okay, let it be, okay, because this is a limited, this is unfair to you because you've got just so much space to write this beautiful. So let's look at let it be, to stay quiet. I love that. Yes, to stay quiet, but to let it be. No, let me ask you to look at this in a different way. Be quiet, yes, stay quiet, but then start manifesting, start daydreaming, start visualizing, start manifesting, start writing in a journal, in present tense. What would the new earth look like? What would people enjoy? How would it be? how would justice be? What kind of people, what kind of consciousness would people who live in 5D have that are completely the opposite of what the people in 3D have? By the way, the 1%, and I've said this again and again, and so excuse me if I, repeat myself, but the 1% are not a match. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope you understand this. It's actually brilliant because that's what I love about energy. Because the 1% who think like the Dan Peñas and the Elon Musk and the Bezos, all these, MFers, they are not a match to 5D. So it's not about there'll be no billionaires. Well, no shit. No kidding. It's not a match. Have you noticed that when you started spiritually getting awakened that you lost a lot of friends? Supposedly friends, maybe even family members, right? And so it's not because you become your frequency is such a state. It's electricity, right? And it's such a state of consciousness that it's not a match. It's no different than, and this is not to gross you out, but it's no different than, I'm going to come up with a fifth grader dating a person getting a PhD. It's not a match. It's not a consciousness match. It just isn't. And it would never happen. You know what I mean? But and it's very similar to that. So we're dealing with little babies, little souls that are new souls that are, crowing their wealth and crowing their this, that, and the other, and trying to show what a great success. Well, it's not a success if somebody hands you $40 million to turning into 400 million. It's really not a success. None of them have accomplished any of these successes, quote unquote, without a massive leg up. We're talking massive. And that's fucked up because most people don't know that to be true. When you look at people like, and I don't know whether they're asking me to say this, but when you look at, and many of you have seen this movie, many of you have not, and I invite you to go see that movie. It's called Amadeus by Amadeus Mozart. It's about Mozart, right? And Mozart was broke. Mozart was at the mercy of the 1%. Here we go again with that bullshit. And so was Van Gogh. He was under the mercy of the 1%. His brother who was an art collector, an art dealer. And well, who was he dealing the art to? Well, to the 1%. So my point is, Mozart was no less brilliant because he was broke. He was more interested in creating music and escaping from reality because it was hard to live like that. It was hard to always hustle and still want to create work, brilliant work. So what I want you to understand, and please try to absorb it, is that yes, this silence is very potent, because in silence you get downloads. In silence you get directions. You have aha moments. Silence is an absolute beautiful thing to embrace. Like no music, no. Do you know how many people I know in the spiritual community who literally have the TV on Gaia and they think it's cool? No, sometimes it's good to have nothing on, nothing, just silence. And I'm with you on that. But I also feel as if it's our responsibility, and this is where many of us have to kind of, prod you guys up and say, look, we're all responsible to co-create this new earth. That means we all need to do our parts in our meditations, and maybe have our meditations for ourselves, and then take 10 minutes to do maybe at night a meditation for the new earth. Does that make sense? And do that on a daily. I do that on the daily. I also do, and I'm going to start again because I stopped for a few days, the 369, in working all of this out so that I keep co-creating with the universe again and again and again on a daily. Okay? Let me see. Hang on for a quick second here. Give me a second. Hello? So what I'm going to do is pull a card for you guys. I want to pull an oracle card. Hang on. Because this is a very intense... 2025, as I said before, is going to be a very intense, beautiful year. If you think it started off with, the the consciousness in the sky, the little circles of consciousness in the sky, it's going to get more intense. I hope everyone had a beautiful day. Thank you. That's very kind. So the card that we're going to pull out is from... I've been really... Oh, okay. It's called Unshakable Inner Peace Oracle Cards. And I'm going to pull one out to see what it says for you guys on this journey. Because this journey is all about us. What are we going to co-create with our time? All right, let's see. You won't believe this card. It's number 1. And number 1 in numerology is the sun, clarity, healing. You create your own reality. What you want wants you to. What do you want to experience? You can't make this shit up. I swear to God, I just pulled that. I can't even believe. Swear to God, this is when I know our guides are here. We are being guided, my friends. So let me repeat the card. You create your own reality. What you want wants you to. What do you want to experience? So that's the question. What do you want to experience? Mad Max? Or do you want to experience the new earth? And again, yesterday I did a live and I said to you, many of you weren't there, but many of you might have been. I said, if I had told you that they were going to lock down planet Earth for 3 weeks on, under the COVID thing, you would have told me in 2017, in 2012, in 1999, you would have told me I was crazy. It could never happen. But it did in 3 weeks. It took 3 weeks. And it happened. If I had told you that there would be conscious light in the sky with little SUVs, well, not little, from what I've heard, big ass SUVs in the sky, lots of them, you would have said, yeah, what are you smoking? And here we are. So when I tell you the 5D Earth is upon us, what are you going to say now? Does that make sense where I'm coming from? I'm saying, what exactly do you want? And that's the question, and the only question you should have within yourself. Why don't I believe this is possible? Look at all the shit that's happened that I would have never believed in a million years. And here it is. Next card, it's number 21. Again, beautiful card. 21 is the end of a cycle. In tarot, it's the end of a cycle, the beginning of a new cycle. It says, great awakening. Walk in your truth. Stand firm in your light. How can you trust yourself more? This is probably the most important thing that you need to ask yourself. How can you trust yourself more? From the Great Awakening, walk in your truth, stand firm in your light. How can you trust yourself more? That's incredible. 21. Let's keep going. Let's get another card and see what else that they want us to know. What else do you want them to know? Wow. 18. 18 in numerology is spiritual material conflict. In tarot, it's the moon. It's confusion. It's absolute. But 18 is the year of 2025. It's 9. 1 plus 8 is 9. The karmic loop of 8 is karma. Karma that we have to pay for ourselves. Karma on what's going on this planet has been going on, meaning the karmic loop of the 1%. The responsibility of billionaires was never to subjugate the 99%. This is something, and again, they're telling me to tell you about this, and I'm going to read the card in a minute, but they're telling me to talk to you about King Arthur and the Round Table. They're telling me to tell you about the fact that King Arthur, you could say it's a myth, it really doesn't matter if it is or not, but King Arthur was responsible for his kingdom. There was a philosophy in the ancient world that if you were blessed by the gods to be a ruler, it was your responsibility to take care of them. And when you did not do it, right? A messenger would come to right the wrongs. That's a theme that comes up a lot. If you look at Roman history, for example, let me read you the card. So 18 is spiritual material conflict. What does that mean? It means you choose your heart, not the logic. The logical mind will say, well, I could make $300,000 being a mortgage banker. I could make more than that. But your heart says, I really want to heal people. I want to be a Reiki master. I want to heal with my hands. I want to do sound frequency. And the irony is, maybe in this incarnation, you become as big as Eckhart Tolle if you gave yourself a chance. So spiritual material conflict, 18, your purpose is personal expansion. Again, your purpose is personal expansion. How can you be more intentional with your choices and live with more purpose? It's a hell of a question. Well, are you going to go with the status quo and think that because you've never seen it, you've never seen a new earth before? Well, you may not have ever seen it in this timeline, but again, that's a pretty myopic view, isn't it? Considering you've had incredible incarnations on this planet for probably a few thousand years. That means that at some point in those 1,000 years, there was portals of 5D in Ireland before Atlantis fell, after Atlantis fell, Lemuria, parts of Africa, parts of Asia. There were portals of 5D that were still there. That means you could live in a conscious community with your tribesmen and women, and you could have a good life, unbothered by anything. No war, no famine, and no disease. And you did it because it was a collective agreement. An egregore had been built that was of light, that supported everyone in that tribe. And then the degradation began, little by little, generation after generation, until here we are. But there was a time when people lived the way we want to live again. And not to mention, if you believe you were a starseed, you've lived in other realms, in other planets, where this ease of living, not to pay to live, not to scrap to live, not the Oliver Twist, Christmas carols, Les Miserables type of realities are part of the daily. I just found out, and this just shocked the shit out of me, that the average person makes $63,000 a year. Average. As you well know, that's no money at all. It's no money at all. So look at some of the things I've been posting. I've been posting a lot about different things. I'm trying to keep it light, but there's some things that we need to be aware of. And when this channel is removed, because honestly, this channel has really educated so many people, it's quite something. I've heard of people tell me personally, when they first meet me, when I do readings for them, or hypnotherapy, or Akashic readings, or whatever I do, they'll say that from TikTok, they came their spiritual awakening came from TikTok, for real. So, does it end? Do you go back to sleep when this channel dies, or is pushed away, and the only way to access it is through a VPN? Or do you continue your conscious awakening? You continue it. I know that many of us are pushing people to like other channels. Feel free to, you can check me out on YouTube. But I feel as if we need to, the Boston, look at your forefathers in this country. It was a Boston tea tax. It was a fucking tea tax for tea. No different than TikTok. So what I would say to you is visualize it still existing. Visualize it. Visualize the next president, realizing that sometimes people do need their bread and circus. And the illusion of freedom of speech is important for people. Unbeknownst to all of these people making those decisions, they don't realize that their system is impermanent. All good things end, all bad things end. Realize that their system is impermanent. All good things end, all bad things end. All things end, no matter what. No matter what you do, no matter what you want to do, they end. That's it. And they end because everything has an expiration date. Everything. And so their time has come. And with that said, what we do with what we create with the ashes of that truth is going to be very important in 2025. It's critical. Let me go ahead and pull some cards from another deck. I'm really curious to see what comes next. This deck is from, you know what? Actually, I'm going to pull from Kali because we need some important power to come in. So Kali is what I'm going to pull from to see what's going to happen. And again, I keep asking because the energy shifts and change. You know, when you ask something from the Akashic records, like for example, the day a person's born and the day they die, actually, there are portals that open and close. Some people have 100 portals. Some people have 5 portals where they can actually decide, you know what, I'm out of here. And some people, they have, you know, the final portal is the final portal. That means today, sorry, you can't go back. We're done. It's time to go home now, right? But in between that, between free will and crossroad moments and decisions based on self-worth or self-loathing, that can change the name of the game. So I'm going to ask, what is the message for 2025, though I've asked it before, to see if the shift is similar, if it's still in a place of power, or if it's getting diluted by people's fear or by people's rage, impotent rage. So I'm going to look, and I'm going to go middle, and here we go. Number 9. You can't make this shit up if you tried. Did I not say 2025 is 9? Yeah. Well, here we go. Here's number 9. And this is called Khadga. Khadga. So it's been a while since I've gotten this card. So let's see what the hell it says. That should be interesting. What a ride that's going to be. Okay, so you can't make this up. This is the card for 2025. 9. Khadga. She wields the holy sword of divine severance, empowering the soul in radical letting go. Why is this important? Radical letting go. Stop believing that it's always been that way and it always will always be that way. Stop doing that, because that is really self-limiting, and that's brainwash talk. You're literally just talking rhetoric because you're afraid to be disappointed. It's not coming from a place of power and cynicism and logical mind. It's coming from a place of fear, of being disappointed. Well, what if it doesn't happen next year? So what? It's happening. We're in progress. It's just like somebody saying, I want to lose 100 pounds. Okay, well, I'm just going to visualize it. Well, I'm disappointed. It's Tuesday now. I haven't lost 100 pounds. No shit. That kind of damage took a long time. That kind of healing might take a little longer. So let's continue. She instills the courage to bear the pain of love and the wisdom to realize the secret blessing that can only arise when we embrace change. Where our strength of will may falter, she intervenes to ensure we do not sabotage our ultimate fulfillment and spiritual progress. She will not allow our souls to be ensnared in any kind of deception or trapped in fear. She is the liberator, and her sword clears the path, revealing truth. Khadga is the Sanskrit word for sword. Devi Khadga Hasta means the divine mother who wields the sword. What is this sacred weapon? The sword severs, breaks, and destroys. It can be a symbol of truth and the need of the soul to let something or someone go, even though the attachment of the ego may demand that we remain connected out of fear of loss. Did you hear that? I'm going to repeat it. The need of the soul to let something or someone go, even though the attachment of the ego may demand that we remain connected out of fear of loss or fear of the pain of loss. You still want the McDonald's or the drive-thru, the pizza to be delivered, or your Uber Eats. You gotta laugh. You gotta let go. Devi Kali's sword is the symbol of her will and her attainment. Her sword knows which attachments require severing and when and how to obtain such a release, even when the building on, perhaps out of fear or guilt or doubt, denies us the capacity to even consider walking away. Her will prevails. Sometimes we invest in a relationship, a situation, a place, or an opportunity, or a government, or a country. You get where I'm coming from. Because we feel it is needed and beneficial, only to realize later, if at all, that we have outgrown it. And then it becomes at best something slowing down our awakening, and at worst a direct impediment to our spiritual growth. Regressive tendencies creep up on us slowly so that we don't realize how much damage is being done over time. Even if we have a sense something is not quite right, our awareness can never be complete when we are determined to remain attached and unwilling to see any truth that threatens that attachment. Any unwavering desire for a particular outcome locks us into an unwillingness to see the truth that would shift our perspective and open us to a superior outcome. We may admit something is wrong, but choose to believe that if we change ourselves somehow or work harder to heal the other person, then the negativity will transform into something positive. We then become trapped in an impossible situation of our own creation, knowing something is not working. But as we are not capable of letting go, fooling ourselves into thinking we can heal and transform through methods that cannot accomplish the task. This is not a joke. Yeah. I think what we're looking at here is the massive aspect of fear of change, radical change. When Kali Devi's sword appears as a message, she advises that whatever we are struggling with can and should be handed over to a higher power. She will sever the threads of attachment, and we can trust that if someone or something is meant to remain in our lives or to return according to divine love and wisdom, then so shall it be. If we need to go against divine love to keep something, it can only create suffering. She will not only remove that impediment on your path, but support you. So the release brings you joy rather than endless sorrow. The oracle of Khadgan denotes divine workings in a struggle you are moving through at this time. There's a predestined series of events due to occur as orchestrated at a higher level. The timing will incorporate the paths of those who have soul contracts with and the movement of the collective consciousness. For you to be at the appropriate vibration to move in harmony, did you hear that? For you to be at the appropriate vibration, aka frequency, to move in harmony with where you need to be and whom you need to interact with, certain releases have to take place now. What releases would those be? Self-limitations. Read the room, please. You can trust in the doors that close just as much as in the doors that will open as a result. In other words, doors have to close for new doors to open. And what people are now seeing in the sky, which I keep saying the same thing, and I'll say it again because I don't care, is this little show is interesting because it's in cities. Now, have you noticed that most of us who were able to do it, this is not to shame anyone in the cities, okay, because that's not what it's about. I've been in the cities. But most of us don't want to be in the cities. But what I found is that and one of the reasons why we didn't want to be in the cities, many of us, and those who were given opportunities by the universe to move, was because there was a lot of cynicism, a lot of greed, a lot of avarice, a lot of cruelty, a lot of unbalanced energies. And so the show in the sky is really for those who are cynical, who go, yeah, I'll see you when I believe it, which I said that yesterday. I'll see you when I believe it. And now everyone's scrambling, trying to figure this shit out. And every human being, damn near on the planet, almost everybody, I'd say out of 99%, 75% have cell phones with cameras and videos. And everyone's recording it, and everyone's freaking the fuck out, because now the concept of what real and reality and science is colliding. But let's not forget Project Bluebeam and his book, which I highly recommend you buy it on whichever, eBay or thrift books, because the days of Amazons are winding down. In fact, I need to, make some decisions, and fast, because I don't want to support something that actually terrorizes people who work for the delivery department and that department, this department, all these departments. And unfortunately, it's become a force where many of us who are authors, writers, have no other way to go unless we have, $5,000 to self-publish our books. So there's a lot of conflicting things, but what I will say is that the batons of power are going to be transferred to other energies who are more in balance, or it will collapse and we'll go back to other ways. Technology is not going to leave us because we grow. It's not going to leave us at all. But technology is probably going to be from a higher, pure level of conscious, more, how would they're telling me to say more tribal. Imagine that, more tribal. So there'll be a lot more wisdom. The hierarchy will be based on wisdom, not a bully mentality, not I have more than you. None of that is going to be part of that energy, because it's not a frequency match. Self-loathing is not a frequency match. Self-importance is not a frequency match. Self-loathing and self-importance are both egoic frameworks that are very destructive to a person. So you need to go into the middle way, like Buddha was talking about, the middle way, the middle path, which is balancing. Just look at your shadows and understand them, and look at your light and embrace them the way a good mother or a good father would do. In other words, become your own best parent, your own best guide, your own best mentor, and align yourself with people who can support that in you, who want that in you, who want you to excel. In fact, outdoing the teacher is the goal. Just like a good parent wants you, as a good parent, to outdo them, be more beautiful, be more handsome, be smarter, more driven, better. That's the goal of a good parent. So that's what you need to align yourself with. But ultimately, the new earth is part of your birthright, should you want it. That's all. All right. So I want to thank you again for being here. Follow me on YouTube, and when you're ready to follow me on YouTube, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Just send me a message on any of the videos you check out. And I just look forward to 2025 with such excitement and such gratitude. It's been a very hard year this year. I think we've all gotten our asses kicked this year. This was tremendously tough for a lot of us for various reasons. All of them important, and we've learned a lot from this year. And the signs in the sky, which started with chemtrails a long time ago, are now becoming much more insistent, obviously, in their presence. And there's definitely communication going on. And it was bound to happen at some point, right? Don't you think? We weren't going to be the only game in town on this system for forever. It wasn't gonna. It wasn't before. Like 14,000 years ago, there were other beings on this planet with us. So it's not like it's a stretch at all. It's an overdue visit from, you could say, your ancestors. Is really what's happening, and. Not all ancestors wish you the best, but right now, what I see is only benign energy. I'm not seeing anything at all that's negative or harmful. And believe me, if they wanted to, they would, and they haven't. So that right there should give you comfort. I know what I love about a lot of you guys are you're posting messages like, "Can I stop paying my bill now?" Do you see what I'm saying? When you have like 10,000 messages that say the same thing, can I stop paying my bill? When can I stop paying my bills? That says a lot about the consciousness of people. It shows me that they have been suffering on this hamster wheel every 12 months, right? It's the same old shit of paying bills, paying to live, and struggling to pay the bills and struggling to live. And it's wash and repeat, wash and repeat. And it's been harming the creative pulse of the collective brilliance that could really do some great things for everyone on this planet. We've got Einsteins out there. We've got brilliant minds and philosophers and poets and real scientists, not this debacle that we've seen where science changes. It does a 180 constantly, and we're just expanding our science. No, the more you know, the less you know. That should be how science processes their supposed expertise. They should be humble. They should be humble, because as long as we process scientific discoveries through the 3D brain with all of its limitations, then we need to know that there are things that were considered normal and nonchalantly, let's just do that 75 years ago. Now we're horrified this was ever thought of and considered, that's just how it is. Well, it isn't now, because no one would ever do whatever these normalized ideas were. Like, for example, spraying kids with, what was it, DDT? Just smoking and drinking while you're pregnant. Nonchalant, have a scotch, baby. Oh, you want a cigarette? Smoking a pack a day while pregnant. And no one would ever think, but this was acceptable. And I could say more, but it's not appropriate for me to say it here on what they did to women, what they've done to men, this was all considered fine. And now it's considered abuse. So that was under the premise of scientific, logical thinking. So there you go. Anyway, we've got some wonderful minds out there that need the freedom to create, and hopefully they will. Okay? All right. Any other questions that are valid? Any questions at all? All right. Sending you much love on your journey. Namaste. Be well. Take care.